So without you acknowledging that you essentially created the opportunity for them to let you down in the first place, you are never gonna get out of this cycle. What's up, rock stars? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Tracy Ferguson. I'm a self-love and relationship coach, and those are the things that we discuss in this community every Friday. If you like this video or it resonates with you at all, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm along when you do, which helps get my videos in front of more people who really need them, so thank you in advance. So here's the deal. This video does not need a long intro. We've been talking about how expectations ruin everything. Today we're going to talk about how to release the resentments that have been building up due to unmet expectations, how to let go of expectations in general, and finally get what you want and need in your relationship. Are you ready? Let's go. P.S. I have a lot of energy today. Try and stay with me. So how do you let go of resentments? Well, the easy answer is that forgiveness is required. Now, I won't try to oversimplify here. Forgiveness is a discussion all by itself, and sometimes it feels really super complicated. But if we want to release resentment, we have to embrace forgiveness. And the first step is simply to become willing to forgive. Sounds easy enough, right? I always start here with willingness because people tend to be extremely clear in the way they feel about this. Have you ever noticed that when you're like, hey, so I think you should forgive so-and-so, and they're like, yeah, you're probably right. Or you're like, hey, have you ever thought about forgiving what's his name? And they're like, he does not deserve forgiveness. Are you crazy? Am I right? I feel like people tend to go one way or the other. Not always, but often, at least in my experience. Comment below if you've noticed this and which side of the fence you generally fall on. So that's your first step. Become willing to forgive. Now you might say, won't, I won't, no. Or you might say, I want to, kind of, I can't. I have no idea how to do that. Or my personal favorite, oh, I've forgiven them, but I will never forget. That's a whole other thing. By the way, you can probably hear my children playing and screaming and doing all the things in the background. We're gonna let that happen because that's just where we're at today. So let's say you're in the I can't, I don't know how to forgive them group. In order to become willing to forgive, I'm gonna give you the secret sauce right here. Are you ready? You must become unwilling to carry the pain. Oh, I wish I could have said that in slow motion. This is effectively the only thing you have to know in your soul about resentment and your power to release it. Now, a brief aside, because you know I love those. Speaking about forgiveness in general, I'm not trying to say that forgiveness is always an easy or quick process, especially when we're dealing with feelings and experiences involving trauma. In fact, depending on the nature of the resentment, I recommend varied forms of support, be it a therapist, a coach, a pastor, whatever aligns with you when navigating particularly painful memories. But really, no matter the degree of the injury or its corresponding resentment, it's my belief that you can't truly and authentically begin to let things go until you become irrevocably unwilling to carry the pain for even a moment longer. Now, for various reasons related to our own unique perspectives and experiences, some of us are willing to carry the pain for much, much longer than others. This has to do with our childhood, our support systems, our spirituality, our resources, our mental health, all the things. And I refuse to generalize when it comes to our unique circumstances and perspectives. But what I find especially relevant to our willingness to carry the pain is how successful our coping strategies are. Now, this is a whole other discussion. But coping strategies could be anything from prayer and meditation, to complete avoidance. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to go there. To binging Netflix, to drugs and alcohol. And in my experience, the more often we reach for numbing ways of coping, whatever that looks like, the longer we're able to effectively avoid the inner work that will bring true healing rather than a temporary escape. Now, once you become unwilling to carry the pain and become willing to forgive, honestly, the rest is up to you and your higher power. I can't even begin to understand, let alone explain the grace that becomes present in order to allow true forgiveness to occur. But I do know definitively that only when I become willing to forgive do I stand a chance of experiencing the metanoia that follows. Now that got a little deep, but I've been thinking about this a lot. I want to move forward very consciously on this platform and recognize that I have a responsibility to clarify certain aspects of these videos and explain that the things we discuss here tend to exist on a bit of a spectrum. So it's really important for me to say that while these concepts truly are relatively simple, I'm fully aware that the process often is not. So let's say you've forgiven your partner for whatever expectation that they didn't meet that you set in motion on their behalf. Good for you. That was overly sarcastic and sounded very rude. Seriously, good job. This is where releasing expectations in general, or the expectation that you just had to forgive your partner for not meeting, becomes incredibly important. Because if you forgive them for the injury, in this case, the disappointment from the unmet expectation, then you can see how this is going to continue to creep in unless you release the expectation itself. So without you acknowledging that you essentially created the opportunity for them to let you down in the first place, you are never gonna get out of this cycle. Hey, listen, been there, bought the t-shirt, still occasionally consider going into the souvenir shop till I check myself. So after all these weeks and all these discussions about how expectations ruin everything, I'm finally gonna tell you how to stop doing that crap. And I can do it in one word. One. How do you stop expectation in its tracks? Speak. Yep, that's it. Because guess what? Once you speak an expectation out loud, it's no longer an expectation. It's a request. Hallelujah. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about how to communicate like an all the way grown up, how we need to identify requests and requirements? Yes, you remember this? We talked about owning your truth while understanding that your partner will have and is entitled to his or her own unique perspective. Oh, we just had a cool full circle moment, didn't we? And don't worry, I'll link the communication video at the end of this one. Now, when you give a literal voice to the voice in your head, then suddenly you're able to call your partner forward rather than keeping them trapped in your predictions about the future based on previous experiences. And more importantly, you give your partner an opportunity to step toward you, to agree, disagree, ask questions, discuss. See how much nicer that is than assuming that he or she will do the thing that you want them to do that you didn't exactly ask them to do? Now, ideally, this is the point where you and your partner would enter into some sort of agreement about the request or requirement. This is also a great time to discuss some boundaries around the new agreement. Because you've given a voice to the expectation in the form of a request or a requirement, if the agreement is somehow compromised, then you can and should exercise some boundaries around that. So setting boundaries is a huge discussion, and we will talk a lot more about this on this channel, but for right now, here's the takeaway that I want you to have today. A boundary and an ultimatum are not the same thing, like at all. Just like sometimes we confuse requests with expectations, we need some clarification here. I explain it to my clients like this. Picture yourself standing on a sidewalk. Draw a circle around yourself with chalk. Everything inside the sacred circle, as I like to call it, is what you can control. Everything outside of the circle is beyond your control. Quickly notice if you had resistance to that statement. If you did, then you might ask yourself where in your life you're trying to exercise control, if it's working, and if the effort is serving you. Contrary to popular belief, setting a boundary is about you, not your partner. Stay away from ultimatums and instead speak life into boundaries that hold your peace at the center. You'll want to steer clear of statements that sound like this. If you blank, then blank will happen. Yeah, that kind of dominance is not sexy. Don't do that. Instead, try something like this on. When I feel blank, then I will blank. See how using an I statement changes the tone of that completely? Think about it like this. You might build a fence around your yard in order to create privacy or safety. What you wouldn't do is go over and build a fence around your neighbor's yard in order to create privacy and safety. Right? Right. You might say, Tracy, I don't want to have these conversations because I don't want to come off as too needy or unreasonable, and I really don't want to start a fight. Listen to me. If you have reflected on what you want in order to thrive and what you need in order to feel safe, if you've gone inward and really reflected on the validity of these desires, and you've called your man or woman forward into a conversation of honesty and vulnerability, and you are met with disrespect, disregard, or hostility, that's a red flag. And that is what I mean by those instances when we truly need to pause and question the trajectory of our relationship. Not the instances where you really wanted them to do or be something but never actually asked them to do or be the thing that you needed them to be and then you got mad at them for it. That's never going to be an effective way to gauge how well your partner loves you or whether or not you're in the right relationship. So take a deep breath and go rewatch all the other videos in this playlist. Bring it all together. I really hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I have. Comment below your biggest takeaway from this video or any of the previous videos and let me know what topic you want to dive into next. So have an awesome day, night, weekend, holiday. Remember to stay self-aware and I will see you in the next video. Because guess what? Once you speak, that was gross. My face red, there's nobody in here. I just spit all over everything. Let it go, let it go. Have you watched Frozen 2? It's exquisite. So a boundary. Words are hard. I'm all over the place. What else is hard? Winged eyeliner. Whew. My plant is gone. It's wilty and sad. Really though, I've been there. I bought the t-shirt, I bought the mug, I bought the hoodie, I bought the stuffed animal, I got the long sleeve t-shirt, because, you know, you never know, and the toboggan, all the things. I still get triggered and have tendencies to be insecure, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Where are you? Sorry, babe. You're the real MVP. Love you, mean it. Elsa, like, magically released her resentment. Just like, poof. I love the premise of that movie, but needed a few more details.